What if the most infamous serial killer in human history was never a faceless monster lurking in dark alleyways, but a respected gentleman protected by the most powerful family in the world? What if the Whitechapel murders were not the work of a deranged predator acting alone, but a carefully organized cover-up designed to silence a woman who became pregnant with royal blood? Tonight, we reopen a case the world believes is finished, a story that official history tried to bury, and a theory that refuses to die even after more than 130 years. This is not just the story of Jack the Ripper. This is the story of power, fear, secrets, and the price of forbidden love. Before we continue, remember, what you are about to hear is a mix of documented history, testimony, rumor, and conspiracy theory. Nothing here is stated as proven fact, but the unanswered questions are too compelling to ignore. Now, let us go back to London, 1888, a place where darkness didn't just belong to the night, it lived inside the walls. London in the late 1800s was a city divided between glittering wealth and unimaginable poverty. On one side, there were grand palaces with golden lamps, polished marble, and ballroom whispers. On the other, narrow alleyways filled with disease, famine, addiction, and desperation. Whitechapel was not just a district. It was a trap. Poor lighting, overcrowded housing, and crime on every corner created the perfect hunting ground for someone who wanted to kill and vanish without a trace. People sleeping in doorways, families sharing single rooms, and the constant noise of carriages, drunks, rain, and fear meant that screams were often ignored. Women known as unfortunates worked the streets at night because they had no other choice. They sold what they could because society sold them nothing in return. This was not a place where police arrived in minutes. This was a place where your best chance of survival was hoping the shadows didn't move. Against this backdrop, the first of 5 brutal murders shook the world. Though there were more suspected victims, historians traditionally recognize 5 women as the canonical victims of Jack the Ripper: Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, Mary Jane Kelly. All of them suffered horrific attacks with chilling similarities: throats cut, brutal mutilation, and in some cases, what appeared to be anatomical knowledge. The violence was not chaotic. It was precise, almost practiced. As though the killer was not just taking lives, but sending messages. Despite patrols, public fear, and newspaper frenzy, the murderer moved with confidence and escaped every single time. It was as if he knew exactly where to go, what to avoid, and how long he had, or perhaps, he knew he would never be caught. The investigation into the murders was, at best, chaotic, and at worst, intentionally obstructed. Witness reports were ignored, leads were dropped, suspects were dismissed, and the media quickly became more focused on fear than truth. Critical evidence went missing. Official files were destroyed. And at one point, an officer literally washed away graffiti that may have contained a confession because it might cause political controversy. Why would the police fear political controversy more than catching a killer? Why did some officials seem more focused on silencing information rather than uncovering it? Was it incompetence or interference? The theory that a royal was involved started with a single explosive claim. One of the murdered women had connections to someone from the highest ranks of British society, possibly even a man linked to the crown itself. According to this theory, a woman from Whitechapel had become pregnant by a royal figure, and knowledge of this relationship began circulating among her friends. If the identity of the father became public, it could spark a national scandal that would threaten the monarchy's stability, reputation, and authority. Victorian society operated on strict rules, and royal blood mixing with a street worker would have been viewed as unforgivable. Not immoral, not inappropriate, but catastrophic. The kind of catastrophe that demanded silence. Though names are debated, One particular figure is consistently mentioned by supporters of the royal theory. A royal family member known to have visited certain London districts, interacted with common citizens, and lived a life where privilege and curiosity intersected dangerously. Some versions of the theory suggest that the woman who became pregnant was hidden away. Others claim she attempted to reveal the truth. And a more chilling version suggests that she confided in several women who then had to be silenced as well, one by one. The pattern of the murders, happening close together and involving women who could have shared knowledge, strangely aligns with this possibility. But if a prince or high-status royal was involved, would he have personally committed the murders? Probably not. Which leads to the next part of the theory. If the royal conspiracy theory is true, the killer may not have been Jack the Ripper at all, but an enforcer instructed to eliminate witnesses quickly and permanently. Some versions suggest a royal doctor was involved due to the surgical nature of the wounds. Others point to a coachman, bodyguard, or trusted aide capable of slipping into Whitechapel unnoticed. Whitechapel was the perfect place for such a mission. No witnesses who would be believed, no wealthy voices defending the victims, and a population used to hearing screams. A royal assassination disguised as a madman's spree? It sounds unbelievable. Until you remember that governments around the world have silenced threats for far less. Fear, power, and secrecy are old companions. In recent years, sensational headlines claim that Jack the Ripper was finally identified through DNA, a testing linked to an old shawl connected to one of the victims. For a moment, the world believed the case was solved. But there is a major problem with this supposed breakthrough. The shawl used as evidence had been handled, purchased, displayed, touched, transported, and contaminated countless times over more than a century. Scientific certainty cannot exist when the evidence has passed through hundreds of unknown hands. The announcement was dramatic, but drama is not proof. Some believe this final answer was released simply to calm the public imagination. After all, if people believe a case is solved, they stop asking questions. And when people stop asking questions, secrets remain safe. Humans are naturally drawn to stories where power hides truth. We know that history is not always honest. We know that powerful people have erased scandals, bought silence, and rewritten records. So when a theory emerges that explains the precision of the killings, the silence of the authorities, the missing documents, the gaps in testimony, the sudden investigative dead ends, it becomes harder to dismiss. And although the royal theory may never be proven, it remains one of the most enduring explanations, not because it is shocking, but because it fits more comfortably than the official story. Sometimes, unbelievable events make more sense than believable lies. To be fair, the royal theory is not the only possibility. Over the years, suspects have included a medical surgeon, a butcher, a foreign sailor, a writer, a mentally ill local resident, a serial offender traveling between countries. Every suspect had flaws, and every explanation left holes. The truth remains buried beneath waves of speculation, false confessions, forged letters, and romanticized fiction. Some say the truth died with the final victim. Others believe it died with the final person who remembered it. So who was Jack the Ripper? Was he a madman who hunted the poor because he could? Or a privileged man whose secret threatened an empire? Or a silent agent ordered to clean up a royal scandal, one victim at a time? History gives us facts. Rumor gives us speculation. But fear gives us stories that never fade. As you listen to this, remember, some mysteries remain unsolved not because answers don't exist, but because answers were never meant to be found. Now it's your turn to decide. Do you believe the Jack the Ripper murders were random acts of a lone killer? Or were they part of a royal cover-up so dangerous that silence became a weapon? Tell me your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Your mind might hold the next clue. This episode presents historical information, rumor, and speculative theory for documentary-style entertainment. Nothing stated here is claimed as proven fact.